lockstep. And I knew Charlie very well, and we talked about this a lot, so I know what I'm talking about. But he and I were in exactly the same place. We had both been very, very pro in a way that was totally unquestioning and deeply loyal. And then after Gaza, and it just went on, we both sort of got to the point where it was like, okay, like enough. You know, your most ardent fans looked the other way for a long time, but it's gone on too long. It's gotten too brutal. You don't get an unending pass on brutality.
Megyn Kelly sat down with the Hodge twins, and their conversation quickly got people talking online. When she was asked directly whether she believes America's closest ally had anything to do with Charlie Kirk's passing, she answered, "I don't know." She made it clear she isn't ready to reach that conclusion without stronger evidence. Megyn said there seems to be enough to raise questions, but she hasn't seen proof that would settle the issue. She also shared that she feels compassion for Erika, saying Erika appears to be stuck between two difficult responsibilities, honoring her husband's mission and beliefs, especially during his final months, while also keeping Tuesay's donors satisfied.
Wiping out kids, okay? Like, we're paying attention. And he was there too. And he, even more than yours truly, had his finger on the pulse of what young Republicans wanted, what young conservatives were feeling. And they were already against the war. You know, the Democrats went long ago against all of the independents had turned by the summer before when Charlie was killed. And the young Republicans were turning in huge numbers. And he knew it. He had done a forum with young Republicans talking about exactly that. And it's out there. You can see it. You can Google it.
Right.
Megyn suggested that this could point to Charlie and some of the organization's donors not always being fully aligned on every issue. Megyn pointed out that Erika is walking a very fine line, trying to keep the support of major donors while also staying connected to the movement Charlie built from the ground up. But some critics see it differently. They argue that what is happening looks less like someone caught in the middle and more like a deliberate decision, saying Erika appears to be moving away from the positions Charlie was known for.
And so Charlie was starting to turn. He was starting to turn on Israel. And he did not appreciate the pressure he was under from his donors to not turn and to not platform people like Tucker, who had already turned. He didn't appreciate it. He resented it. He was thinking about giving back their donations. And there was a question about which way Turning Point was going to go. Because, you know, the Republican Party was divided in two. Was Turning Point going to choose a side? And was it going to be, quote, the wrong side, you know, in the minds of his, like, deeply devoutly pro donors? And he died before that was resolved.
Many people online also reacted strongly to the fact that Megyn Kelly has been speaking more openly about the pressures Charlie reportedly faced than Erika has in public. Megyn said she accepts the official account based on the information available, but she also made it clear she is not ruling out other possibilities if credible evidence were to emerge, including the possibility of foreign involvement. And that's exactly what we're getting into today. In my opinion, Erika revealed where her priorities were the moment she chose not to publicly respond to questions and claims that many others were already discussing. Candace, Megyn, and even people connected to Turning Point USA spoke about the situation, although some of them seemed to present it in a more cautious and measured way. We'll get to that in a moment. Some people believe Charlie passed away before ongoing disagreements or plans for the organization's future could be fully settled. Others disagree.
Spreading that hate and speak out clearly enough against anti-Semitism so we can prevent another tragedy.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'm so sorry. You and I are a part of a very small club. Painful. But you're in good company, and I will pray for you.
What is clear is that Charlie Kirk was never known for keeping his views private. He regularly explained where he wanted TPUSA to go, what he supported, and what he opposed through interviews, podcasts, and speeches. Charlie also shared his views with colleagues, co-hosts, and even with Megyn Kelly during an appearance on her show. According to public comments from Candace and Megyn, Charlie was under significant pressure from some donors over speaking about political issues involving one of America's closest allies. Those claims have sparked a lot of debate, but they remain part of a broader public discussion rather than established fact.
Sucks, doesn't it? Hate is hate. It's evil. Charlie and I have always been very clear on our stance. It's people. It's awful. Awful. Anti-Semitism is what healing factor comes out of hating people? What healing factor comes out of hating Christians? What healing factor comes out? Hate in general. Nothing. Nothing. Charlie always would say very clearly, hate was brain rot. He would always say it. We've been to Israel twice together. And to be able to walk in the place where our Lord walked and see the Bible come to life in Technicolor, how could you hate that place?
Supporters often describe Charlie as someone whose convictions guided his decisions, believing he felt a responsibility to speak openly about the issues he cared about. That's why some critics have been disappointed that Erika has not publicly addressed those specific claims in detail. Others believe she has her own reasons for handling the situation differently. In an interview with Bari Weiss, some viewers felt her answers were careful and highly polished, but lacked the directness they were hoping for. That contrast became a major talking point online, with different audiences reaching very different conclusions about her approach. In the interview, Erika spoke about how she and Charlie had always expressed support for one of America's closest allies, its people, and the relationship they believed was important. She also suggested that, in her view, some of the criticism directed toward that ally had crossed the line.
How could you hate the people? Why? Because you need to fulfill a conspiracy theory? I'm wrapped in, people say I'm a part of conspiracy theories all the time. It's sick, and it needs to stop. We are human. No one is perfect. No Christian is perfect. No Jew is perfect. No Muslim is perfect. We are broken, sinful humans in need of a Lord and Savior. And that's why it is so important to give your life to the Lord. Because once you do that and you fully surrender to the Lord, you have no room in your heart for hate. And so, sir, I am so sorry what happened to your daughter. I pray that does not happen, and I pray that that is something that we can somehow extinguish in this world. But we are living in enemy-occupied territory. And every single day we need to guard ourselves, guard our minds, guard our heart. And the best way to do that is reading God's word. And you cannot separate the Old Testament from the New Testament. You cannot.
Those comments immediately drew strong reactions from people across the political spectrum. After that, she became emotional, and the viewers interpreted that moment in very different ways. Some saw it as completely sincere, while others felt the interview left major questions unanswered. Critics argued that the conversation didn't fully address the difficult public debate surrounding Charlie's later comments, which they viewed as focused on criticism of a government's policies rather than an attack on a country's people or identity. Many believed that interview was an opportunity to discuss those complicated issues more directly. One example of how critics say that message could have been expressed is, hate was never the right path forward. But let's be honest, that region's government didn't do itself any favors with what it has been doing. Trust was lost on a massive scale. Some critics believe Erika should have acknowledged the pressure that Charlie was reportedly facing and spoken more openly about how it may have affected him. They argue that if he felt disappointed by reactions from people he had long supported after raising criticism of a government's actions, that would have been an important part of the public conversation. Others see the situation differently and believe she has chosen to handle those matters privately. Those different perspectives continue to spark intense debate online.
Is there anything specific that Turning Point can do to combat anti?
Yeah, so we're all of our college campus and high school campuses, we have these conversations. And our students understand exactly my heart and Charlie's heart and the sentiment of everything I just said. We have Shabbat dinner happening at AmFest. We have individuals in our chapters who are Jewish. We have people that are going to be having booths. We have an exhibit hall at AmFest that are Jewish, that have Jewish organizations. The only way to combat evil, just like Charlie did, is with dialogue and not being afraid to do it.
The comment section reflected that divide. One person wrote, "Is it just me, or does she never seem to answer questions directly?" Others echoed that view, saying they felt her responses were polished but didn't fully address the questions being asked. At the same time, many supporters argued that interviews don't always allow someone to explain every complicated issue in detail. Another commenter asked, "Hold the phone. When did Charlie start liking CBS and mainstream news?" That question came from people who remembered Charlie's public criticism of CBS and other mainstream outlets. They also pointed out that Erika chose CBS for a major interview and later spoke with the New York Times shortly after Charlie's passing. For some observers, those choices stood out and became another point of discussion, while others saw them simply as opportunities to reach a broad audience during a difficult time. Some critics argue that these choices don't look like isolated events, but part of a broader pattern. In their view, Erika's communication style is very different from Charlie Kirk's. They describe Charlie as someone who often addressed difficult topics head-on, while they see Erika as more cautious and less willing to engage in direct, uncomfortable exchanges. Supporters, however, would likely say those differences simply reflect two different personalities rather than a rejection of his legacy.
If you have these things that are being said, you need to counter it with the truth. And if you don't, there's a void and a vacuum. And so even though they're a small number, they get louder and louder. So we need to do our best, which we're doing our part. We're going to continue to do our part to make sure that the truth is always heard. We'll amplify it even more. And we're going to do the best we can, but we need the whole community. We need everyone in on that.
Bob, thank you so much. I want to...
There's another interview that critics frequently point to because they believe it highlights that contrast. They say the conversation was interrupted while Erika was giving a lengthy answer, and some viewers felt the interviewer appeared uncertain about where the discussion was going. Erika also mentioned Shabbat dinners as part of her approach to improving understanding and relationships, which some people viewed positively while others questioned in light of reports about substantial government spending on international outreach and public diplomacy efforts. Some commentators have speculated about whether organizations such as Turning Point USA could benefit from those broader efforts, but no evidence has been presented establishing such a connection. If you remember, Candace raised this issue more than once, and it became part of a much larger public debate. There have also been claims attributed to Andrew Clavin that representatives allegedly approached Charlie with an offer that could have significantly increased TPUSA's financial resources. Those claims have not been independently verified. Some commentators have questioned what happened after Charlie's passing, but there is no public evidence confirming that any such arrangement was accepted or that a major internal shift occurred because of it. questions have also been raised about reported group chat screenshots that were circulated online. According to those reports, Charlie allegedly wrote that he felt he had to step back from a particular cause. People associated with the Charlie Kirk Show reportedly responded by saying those messages should be understood as someone expressing frustration in private rather than as a definitive statement of his long-term position. The authenticity, context, and interpretation of those reported messages remain subjects of public debate.
This group chat text, he does say, that he is leaving him no choice but to leave the procedural set. Here's what I want people to know. Charlie said these things publicly and privately to us, like that he was frustrated. He would say something like that, and then he would go in a public situation and he would strike a more moderate tone. And we can blow the brakes if we have to.
No, I wouldn't frame it that way. I would say he was frustrated because he didn't like we can get into this actually once we get past the break here.
Well, no, it's fine. What I'm saying is he would be frustrated, but like the point when I say moderate tone, when he would say something off the cuff, maybe to you or to me or to some other friend, like his public statements, he would kind of strike just a little bit more tender tone, if you will. And so here's the thing. I looked at that moment as like he's just blowing off steam. He's frustrated. He's venting, right? And I just want to say, like, he made that very clear under any circumstances that he was not going to be cowed or bullied into deplatforming Tucker, for example. He made that expressly clear to us.
Some people have argued that Charlie ultimately disagreed with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson on these issues. However, Megyn Kelly recently said she believed Charlie's views were evolving and becoming closer to positions that Candace and Tucker had been expressing. That's her assessment based on her own conversations and observations, and others may interpret the situation differently. There have also been public claims that Charlie was interested in having Candace return as a speaker, though those accounts have not been officially confirmed. Supporters have imagined what that reunion might have looked like if it had happened, with Charlie and Candace appearing together again. Since that never took place, people have continued to speculate about what might have happened behind the scenes, although there is no verified evidence explaining why. Those unanswered questions are part of the reason some critics remain frustrated with Erika and the way she has addressed the situation publicly. Many critics say Erika has never publicly addressed what they view as one of the biggest questions surrounding Charlie's final months: the reports that he was facing pressure from some donors over his public positions. Those reports have been discussed by several public figures, but they have not been fully substantiated with public evidence. Supporters of Charlie argue that people should be free to change their views over time and to speak out when they believe a government's actions deserve criticism, even if those views are unpopular.
Would he have invited Candace? I have no idea. I think what he was saying in that text, he's like, keep coming at me, bro, and let's see what happens, right? And Charlie was wonderfully defiant. He was wonderfully independent, and he would not, he believed in the freedom of speech, and he felt like he deserved, as a friend of his over many years, the right to speak out and have criticism. I will say one other thing, is that he's loyal. Charlie was loyal to people that he had shared history with, right? He was asked, I think this may be what you were about to say, Blake. He was asked about Candace before in public, and he would always say, listen, we're friends. He would never say an ill word about her. And if people, tried to force him to do that about Tucker or whatever, he would always be defiant because he didn't want to be morally blackmailed.
Exactly. Charlie was loyal to people who had ever been friends to him, whether it was very old donors or just people who had worked with Turning Point.
Yeah.
And as long as they were not attacking him, he would not air any dirty laundry or, frankly, any disagreements he had with people. He did disagree with Candace on the Israel issue. He disagreed with Tucker on the
Megyn Kelly has also faced criticism online, with some people urging her to take a stronger public position. Others, however, argue that it is reasonable to be careful before making definitive claims about serious matters, especially when there is no conclusive public evidence supporting allegations of outside involvement in Charlie's passing. Given the sensitivity of the topic, many believe caution is appropriate rather than rushing to conclusions. Megyn has said she believes Charlie's thinking was evolving on certain issues before his death, based on her own perspective and conversations with him. She also appears to be continuing to examine those topics publicly in her own way. Erika, meanwhile, was not primarily known as a political commentator. But some observers believe she has taken on a more visible public role since Charlie's passing, bringing increased attention and scrutiny to her public appearances and interviews.
And so I feel for Erika because I don't think Charlie was having an easy time of that. And Erika certainly is not going to be having an easy time with that. You know, like she's left with Charlie's messaging, which was no war with Iran, but that anti is brain rot, and probably in no condition to discern what exactly is anti-Semitism and what's not, because like people are conflating that right now. They're expanding that term as we speak to include any criticism of Israel.
Remember the website that appeared just one day after Charlie's passing, vanskirk2028.com? Its launch quickly sparked speculation online, with multiple commentators suggesting it could mean Erika was being positioned for a future run for public office. Those claims remain speculative and have not been confirmed, but they became a major topic of discussion. More recently, some observers have pointed to Erika's activity on X as another reason for that speculation. They noted that she reposted Riley Gaines and commented on the issue of transgender participation in women's sports, a subject they say she had not previously addressed in her public messaging. For those already watching her public profile, that shift drew even more attention. The repost said Democrats claim to champion women's rights, yet they allow men to infiltrate women's spaces under the guise of identity politics. Then they gaslight anyone who questions it and smear women for defending basic reality. The hypocrisy is astounding. God created men and women intentionally and in His image, each with a unique design and purpose. A society that can no longer recognize or honor the truth is not just losing fairness in sports, it is losing its understanding of God's creation, and with it, its humanity.
And Erika, for most of her adult life, has not been a political figure. She's been a wife, she was reality TV, she was a realtor. Like, she hasn't been in the business. This is complex stuff,
right?
Even for me, and I've been in law and politics for a long time, decades. So I just think she's probably, and I haven't talked to her about this, but I think she's probably, I don't know, feeling the ground under her feet moving and not wanting to do anything that's going to undermine her husband's organization, and doing her best to just hold whatever factions she can together so that they don't turn on Turning Point. You know, like I think based on what we saw at like, you know, their event in December, AmFest, she would like to keep both factions under the Turning Point roof. I don't know whether it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think she'd like to keep those pro donors on board and not lose the non-interventionalist section of the party. And I don't know whether that's possible either. So that's, you know, you asked me why she hasn't said anything about it. That's my guess without having spoken to her directly.
So do you think Charlie Kirk's was a coincidence at that point in time where he was starting to turn against his? You think it was just a coincidence?
I don't know.
Some commentators questioned why Erika chose to share that message at this particular moment. In their view, it seemed unrelated to the debates surrounding Charlie's legacy and felt more like a shift toward broader cultural and political issues. That interpretation is subjective, and others may simply see it as reflecting her own views. Critics argued the timing looked intentional rather than accidental, and suggested it could signal a change in her public messaging. They also pointed to the next post on her timeline, which praised J.D. Vance, as another reason they believed her online activity was moving in a more overtly political direction. The next post shifted to another political topic, with Erika commenting on Spencer Pratt's reported campaign. She wrote, "Regardless of the outcome of Spencer Pratt's race, what he's doing is authentically American. See a problem, become a part of the solution. His campaign ads are unconventional, but that's the point. It's refreshing. Instead of speaking like a career politician, he's speaking as an American who sees and deeply understands how fragile the simple things in life are when leadership fails." This is what this country is all about. Citizens willing to step into the political arena unafraid and challenge a failing system, much like the one that has destroyed Los Angeles. I hope moments like this inspire more Americans to throw their name into the mix. That post led to another wave of reactions online. Some observers saw it as a sign that Erika is becoming increasingly comfortable weighing in on political issues beyond those directly connected to Charlie's legacy. Others viewed it simply as support for civic participation. Critics have gone a step further, arguing that these posts could be laying the groundwork for a future political role, but that remains speculation rather than an established fact. As her public messaging evolves, people continue to debate what it may signal for the future. Some critics believe Erika's recent posts sound like the kind of message someone might use before announcing a bigger role in public life. They imagine a speech along the lines of, "I decided to step up, to stop being a bystander, to do something." In their view, the tone, language, and overall presentation resemble the early stages of a political brand. Others, however, see that interpretation as reading too much into a handful of social media posts. The discussion grew even louder when some supporters pointed out what they saw as an inconsistency. They questioned why Erika publicly commented on Spencer Pratt while not making similar public statements about Representative Thomas Massie, whom Charlie had openly supported. For those critics, that contrast became another topic of debate and added to the ongoing questions about the direction of her public messaging. One commenter put it this way: "Your attempt to be a political influencer feels so disingenuous. You didn't post this much when Charlie was alive." That remark gained attention because it reflected a concern some followers have expressed online. Others disagreed, arguing that it is natural for someone's public presence to change after a major life event. Either way, her social media activity has become a frequent topic of discussion. Some critics believe Erika's public messaging is still evolving and that there is no clear long-term direction yet. They speculate that over time, she may try to establish an identity separate from Charlie's legacy and take on a larger leadership role. Based on that view, they see her recent posts as an effort to become more active in political conversations. Another commenter wrote, "Erika will come out for Spencer Pratt, but won't show support for Charlie's favorite congressman." Supporters, however, argue that choosing which topics or people to post about does not necessarily reveal a broader strategy. Meanwhile, attention has also remained focused on Megyn Kelly. Her interview drew strong reactions from multiple sides. Some people felt she went too far with her comments, while others believed she was too cautious. That mixed response highlights how polarizing the subject has become and why her position has generated so much debate. When someone has held strong beliefs for many years, changing their perspective usually doesn't happen overnight. That's one reason some people view Megyn Kelly's comments with nuance. Candace Owens is often seen as someone who speaks very directly, even when her views generate intense criticism. Not everyone approaches public issues that way, and different people have different reasons for being more cautious in highly controversial situations. The distinction that many critics emphasize is that Megyn Kelly is an outside commentator, while Erika is the person many associate most closely with carrying forward Charlie's public legacy. Megyn has publicly shared her view that Charlie's thinking was evolving during his final months, and Candace has expressed similar opinions. Those are their interpretations based on their own experiences and conversations, and others may see things differently. Meanwhile, some critics have questioned Erika's decision to remain relatively reserved on those specific topics, noting that many of her public posts have focused on faith and other subjects instead. They argue that this approach has left unanswered questions and has fueled ongoing speculation online. Supporters, however, contend that choosing privacy or a different communication style should not, by itself, be taken as evidence of someone's motives or sincerity. Look, I don't agree with everything Megyn Kelly says, and I don't have to. From my perspective, she appears to be working through these issues publicly and trying to reach conclusions she believes are accurate. I'm willing to wait before making a final judgment. One thing I will say, though, is that she chose not to attack Candace Owens or dismiss her for asking difficult questions, and many people noticed that. Megyn also pushed back against criticism directed at Candace and defended her ability to raise uncomfortable topics without being immediately written off. Supporters saw that as a significant moment because it showed a willingness to defend open discussion, even when doing so could bring criticism. In an environment where many public figures are careful about every statement they make, some people viewed that stance as unusual and worthy of recognition. Commentators also pointed out that Ben Shapiro is an influential voice in conservative media, so publicly disagreeing with him, even on a limited issue, can carry professional and political consequences. Supporters of Megyn argue that she accepted that risk because she believed Candace should have room to pursue her reporting and express her views without being personally attacked. Others, of course, interpret the exchange differently, but it became another major point of debate online. Some supporters see that as a meaningful decision, especially in a political environment where alliances can change quickly and public disagreements sometimes come with real consequences. For them, the bigger question is this: who is willing to accept personal or professional costs for expressing views they sincerely believe? They point to Candace Owens as one example, arguing that she continued speaking even after facing criticism, losing opportunities, and straining relationships. Others believe Megyn Kelly is beginning to move into similarly controversial territory, though in a more measured way. They also point to Tucker Carlson as someone who has publicly discussed issues that, in their view, many people avoid. Supporters see these figures as engaging directly in contentious political debates rather than limiting themselves to broad, inspirational messaging. One theme that keeps resurfacing is the idea that Charlie Kirk's views may have been changing over time. Several people who knew him or have spoken publicly about him, including Megyn Kelly, have suggested that he was re-examining certain issues during his final months. While there is no consensus on exactly how his thinking evolved, many observers believe he was navigating difficult questions about his convictions, his public role, and the expectations placed on him. Those differing interpretations remain at the center of the ongoing discussion. According to several public figures, including Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, they believe Charlie Kirk's views were evolving during his final months. Others who interacted with him publicly have shared similar impressions, although there is no single definitive account of exactly how his thinking changed. Supporters who accept that interpretation argue those shifts may have created difficult conversations behind the scenes. That remains a matter of public debate rather than established fact. Critics say that when people closest to Charlie do not publicly address that period of his life in the way they expect, it leaves room for speculation. In their view, unanswered questions naturally lead to more discussion, more theories, and more frustration among supporters who continue following every interview, social media post, and public statement. Others believe those closest to him may simply prefer to keep certain matters private, and that choice should not automatically be viewed as evidence of anything more. That ongoing disagreement is one reason this story continues to attract attention. Many people remain interested not only in Charlie's legacy, but also in how different public figures have chosen to talk, or not talk, about his final months. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think Megyn Kelly has been accurately expressing her views on these issues? Or would you like to see her explain her perspective in greater detail? And how do you interpret Erika's approach to handling these public questions? Share your thoughts in the comments. This community always brings thoughtful opinions and lively debate, and every perspective adds something to the conversation. If you stayed with this video all the way through, don't stop here. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who would want to join the discussion, and if you haven't, yes,